We have been doing a series of investigative reports on this program about United States immigration policies and the competition for jobs in a tough economy. But tonight, we take you to a part of America that is trying something drastic to jumpstart its beleaguered job market. The scene, the Rust Belt state of Michigan. The message, that immigrants have always helped power America's economy, creating businesses with the same energy and drive that led them to uproot their lives and come to our shores in the first place. Now, some people in Michigan say that the future of an economy made in America may rest in large part on the shoulders of men and women born overseas. Looking now, it's hard to imagine these streets were once home to one of the most innovative cities in the world. At the turn of the 20th century, Detroit was the Silicon Valley of its day, a place to turn new ideas into vast fortunes, a sparkling jewel captivating the imaginations of Americans and foreigners alike. Much like Silicon Valley, in the early 1900s, immigrants made up 1/3 of Detroit's population. But today, much of the city is a ghost town, and those that still live here are facing the worst job market in the city's history. 1 in 5 Detroiters is looking for work, and the state itself has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. The state's new Republican governor campaigned on bringing jobs back to Michigan. But no one expected this plan.
It's the continual reinvention of the United States. And by getting more immigrants here in a legal fashion, particularly with advanced degrees, it's just a great opportunity to create jobs and keep our kids in a wonderful position.
That's right. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder says that to solve the state's jobs crisis, it needs to bring more immigrants. It's probably not the kind of sentiment you'd expect to hear from the leader of a state mired in a 10-year recession.
Simply fixing Michigan is not good enough. It is time to reinvent our state.
Governor, tell me about what I'll call the plan, the immigration plan. What is it, why is it, and why do you think it'll work?
Well, I think it's important for our future. We've been in a recession for a decade, where much of the country's just been for several years. It's how do you really reinvent ourselves? And one of the keys, if you look at history and how we built this wonderful country, was immigration. And so one of the focal points in particular is we already educate so many wonderful students from outside the country. Is there a way to help keep them here?
Every year, Michigan spends millions of its own tax dollars educating the 23,000 foreign students who attend its colleges and universities. And every year, almost all of those foreign students leave Michigan, diplomas in hand, heading to other states and other countries. Governor Snyder likes to remind people that many of the most famous and successful new American companies, Google, eBay, Intel, Yahoo, YouTube, and countless others, were all started by immigrants. And some of those immigrants were even educated in Michigan. Well, how is it supposed to work as a practical matter?
They've actually started the process, saying, first of all, what students do we have here from outside the country, particularly in science and engineering, master's and PhD programs, to talk about what countries they're from, what opportunities there are, and then to talk about different programs for entrepreneurship. The other piece I want to do, though, too, is talk to the communities that we already have here that are ethnic communities, to say, do they have outreach back in their countries to actually bring and attract people to Michigan? Because I think we're a great economic opportunity that we can all win.
I'm not sure exactly who he's talking about, but we chased out 300,000 skilled technicians and professional people. Now he's talking about bringing immigrants in here.
Joseph Valenti, president of Detroit's local Teamsters Union, has a question many Michiganders are asking. Why would the governor look to outsiders when so many citizens have recently been forced to leave the state in search of jobs?
Take the Michigan people that left, that were forced out of here, why don't you offer them the jobs first? Then if no one wants them or no one can fill them, then you go where you have to go. But why not offer your own people the job first?
To those who say, wait a minute, Governor, your state has high unemployment, Detroit has exceptionally high unemployment, and you're talking about bringing in non-Americans to, in effect, take jobs. How can you reconcile that?
Actually, it's a simple answer. Those goals are absolutely consistent. I am absolutely focused on finding jobs for Michiganders, more and better jobs for Michiganders. And encouraging legal immigration with advanced degree people is absolutely consistent with that, because they're job creators. They actually create net jobs.
Immigrants will create jobs, the governor believes, because they are more likely to become entrepreneurs. A study by the Small Business Administration confirms that. It shows that immigrants in Michigan are nearly 3 times as likely as native-born residents to start a business. Businesses that will need to hire Michiganders.
Here, the foreign-born are really powering the economy. You're 6 times as likely to start a high-tech firm in Michigan if you were born abroad. You're 7 to 8 times as likely to file an international patent.
Steve Tobachman was a state senator from 2003 to 2008. During his time in the legislature, he watched in horror as Michigan lost almost 1 million jobs. After leaving office, he made it his mission to create a viable plan for Michigan to bring some of those jobs back home.
32.8% of the high-tech firms created in the state of Michigan over the last 10 years were created by immigrant founders. That's an incredible statistic to have 1/3 of the high-tech firms in Michigan in a state that's only 6% foreign-born.
So Tobachman, a Democrat, spent 2 years creating this 214-page report called Global Detroit, which ultimately became the framework for the new Republican governor's immigration initiative. A sign that this issue can create strange political bedfellows.
You can't have large economic growth without new population. Look at Toronto, a city that was almost the boring sister of Detroit when I was a child 40 years ago. Why is it such a hotbed of growth? Well, it's 50% foreign-born.
Tobachman says he stumbled on the idea of immigration as fuel for economic development after taking a hard look at his own neighborhood in southwest Detroit. This corner of the city was just another victim of urban blight, with few jobs and residents fleeing, until, Tobachman says, an increase in immigrants helped turn it around.
There was tremendous benefits to the non-immigrant community by having these new immigrant clusters. They were new retail opportunities, job opportunities, streets were cleaner, safer, vacant houses were being acquired, rehabbed, and moved into. And so those who are in struggling neighborhoods, who have seen tax dollars leave their communities, who have seen blight and vacancy come to the community, they are often the biggest beneficiaries from new migrants into urban areas.
Tobachman's goals include educating people living in Michigan about the benefits of welcoming immigrants, advertising Michigan to immigrant communities in other states, and, perhaps most importantly, keeping immigrants already attending Michigan's universities in the state after they graduate.
We have 23,500 international students in the state, which is a phenomenal opportunity for the state. It is a $600 million annual export product that we rarely talk about.
An export product that Michigan needs to do a much better job hanging on to. One of the main reasons proponents believe it is so important to retain these students is because so many of them are graduating with degrees in science and math. Take the University of Michigan's College of Engineering. More than 50% of the graduate students are foreign-born. Thomas Zerbican, an associate dean at the college, says that that statistic might say something about Western students' aspirations.
Many students from the United States, but also Western countries in Europe, see engineering, especially PhD educations, as educations that are not worth doing. They seem to be too hard for them, and they seem to be too narrow for them in many ways.
Across the U.S., it is foreigners, not Americans, who make up the majority of many high-level math and science programs. For example, Well over half the doctorates awarded in computer science, engineering, and mathematics in the U.S. go to international students. Zurbuchen, an immigrant himself from a tiny town in Switzerland, says he believes his background helped propel him to where he is today. He's now an aerospace engineer, as well as the founding director of the University of Michigan's Center for Entrepreneurship.
These immigrants, whether they're from foreign countries or from other environments, really do have an advantage. The most important advantage is they already moved. They already took a risk. So that's why I do believe that many of these immigrants are especially motivated to be entrepreneurs.
Unfortunately for Michigan, almost all of these students ultimately pursue their careers elsewhere, and that has left the state, even with its soaring unemployment rate, with job openings.
We don't have enough people to be programmers, for example. I could easily fill something like 30 to 50 programming jobs today, just in my environment here, based on the open jobs we have right now.
This brain drain, says Zurbuchen, is particularly devastating because informal surveys at the university show that a majority of foreign students would like to stay in Michigan, but restrictions on immigrant visas and better job opportunities outside Michigan push them away.
We take that innovation and chase it away, as opposed to basically taking these students aside and saying, look, you're one of our lead innovators. We invested close to $250,000 in you to give you that PhD education. It has often been said that the best we could do is staple a green card to every PhD certificate that we give out. I totally believe that's correct.
If you've got it, watch it. If you don't, call your TV provider to get HDNet today.